Welcome to Uncharted and Unfiltered, the journey back to you. I am Cynthia Jameson, your host, and this is where we break free from the noise and dive deep into what truly matters you. If you're tired of the shoulds, the expectations, and the pressures to fit into a mold that doesn't serve you, you're in the right place. This isn't a podcast about easy answers or sugar coated advice. This is your invitation to reclaim your path, embrace the unknown, and become the bold, unapologetic version of yourself that's been waiting to show up. It's time to get unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome back to Uncharted and Unfiltered. This is Cynthia Jameson, your host, your guide, and today is Tuesday, April the 29th, and this episode is late. And this episode is coming to you from a place that is tender and true because I have just lived through one of the most intense weeks of reflection and remembering that I have had in a very, very long time. So I want to take you back with me. So this started on Easter Sunday as I sat with the manual from the method. So for those of you that might be just joining me for the very first time, I am taking a program through the Institute of Intuitive Intelligence. It is called the method. The goal is to help me help others find their fear and transmute it to love. Why is this important? I don't know if you've noticed what's happening in the world out there, but there are a lot of people that are living and leading from so much fear. And I know the tools, I know how they can help, I know how they can absolutely transform someone's life. And I want to be able to have that tool set so that I can support my clients in the releasing of this fear. And so when I started last week, I'm trying to remember where my thought was. So again, it started on Easter Sunday. I sat with the manual. I reviewed everything that I have learned over the past 8 weeks. What landed wasn't just the content, it was something that I call integration, embodiment, truth. So, what is integration? It's when I take something that I've learned about, some concept that I've explored, maybe I've talked about it, I've thought about it, I've taken a different perspective on it, but it's actually going out and living it. And so I found myself reflecting on the hermetic laws, and each one of them brought me closer to what sacred leadership really is. Not theory, but lived truth, if you will, guiding us to lead from a place of deep authenticity and connection. And so here's what I discovered. And I've probably talked about some of this before on the podcast. Honestly, I feel like for me, the amount of transformation that I'm in at this moment in time, I can hardly keep up with it, which is why I'm late with the podcast, and also why I'm intentionally documenting it because we always think we're going to remember these things and we don't always remember these things. So, here's what I discovered in reviewing of the hermetic laws. The first one is all is one. So there is no them. Everything, your team, your family, your inner critic is connected to you. This means that how you lead others starts with how you lead yourself because there is only one of us here. And what I mean by that specifically is when this is the Ram Dass quote, the best thing I can do for you is work on myself. Because when I heal the fear in me, I heal the fear in the collective. And so compassion, truth, and integrity ripple outward when I stand in that. All is one. There is only one of us here. Let me do my work. It serves everyone. The second law is as above, so below. So our internal world shapes our external reality. And so what's happening in your body, your heart, your beliefs, it shows up in your relationships, your career, your results. And so leadership is never just tactical. And I mean, I knew that, but I didn't know that. Like, this is just another deeper level. It is vibrational, which brings me to the third law, which is all is vibration. And of course, as listening, this is not going to be new to you. Everything is energy. What you say matters, but how you be, who you be, that's what people actually feel. And so I knew that as an HR professional. I knew that. I always knew that the intention that you wanted to people to feel was really, really important. And if you set that intention, it changes how you show up. And so the question is, what frequency are you leading from? And perhaps it's fear, perhaps it's burnout, Perhaps it's worthiness. Perhaps it's grace. Whatever it is for you, just notice it for yourself. And so for me, these principles taught me that sacred leadership isn't just about what you do, and it never was. It is about what you embody. It is about how you show up in the world. Now, here's a quick caveat here. When you're living and leading your life in alignment with the things that matter to you, it is not always an easy thing to do. And I say that because it bears repeating, right? Like to actually ask yourself, is this an aligned action for me? Sometimes the aligned action is going to be damned uncomfortable. And part of it being aligned is that you follow through with what it is you're being asked to follow through. So these principles, again, this is what they've taught me, how I show up in the world. And each part of the method that I have been diving into, because there have been individual components that I've been learning about week after week after week. And each of those components holds so much power. Let me give you an example. So, fear profiling, being able to absolutely go in and support someone with understanding what their fear is to make the subconscious conscious so that a decision can be made is incredible. Shadow archetypes, understanding what is the shadow at play here, what are the behaviors that I'm engaging in that are in the shadow, how can I bring those to more light behaviors? So an example would be here, like if I'm in the shadow archetype of the student or teacher, for example. If I'm in the student archetype, if I'm in the shadow side, I'm doubting myself. If I'm in the light side, I'm exploring myself, right? Like I'm exploring, I'm a seeker, I'm doing those sorts of things out in the world. From a teacher perspective, if I am in the shadow side, I'm actually not showing up to teach. But if I'm in my light side of the teacher archetype, then I'm showing up in a way where I am enabling other people to be able to do something that I know so that they can take it and bring it out into the world for themselves. Chakra diagnoses. So even, I mean, I didn't even know there were chakras. I mean, I knew there were chakras, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I didn't understand and recognize that like in the root chakra, that's where this all is one is captured. So if I'm judging people, I feel that in the root of who I am. So within the context of each of the seven chakras, there are behaviors that are shadow and light that show up. Another one of the components of the method is instigating events. So this is going back and looking at other lifetimes. So understanding from a fear perspective, what is the fear here? Like what is the root cause of the fear here? And what is the instigating event that when this fear took place in the body? When did I start to believe this fear? That's what that actually is. And so all of this to say, there's a journey then into the Akashic Records, which is the record of every thought, every feeling, everything that we have ever done, which is in this library. And the fact that we are all one, we have access to everything that's in that library. And so being able to intuitively connect to and go into the Akashic journey with a client and support them in reclaiming the aspect of themselves that has been stuck in the moment when that fear took place. It has been such an incredibly beautiful journey to watch individuals, my peers at this point, reunite with that particular aspect of them. And then the last element of this is called the atonement, which is radical forgiveness. And when I say radical, I mean this is the kind of forgiveness that rewrites your nervous system. This is the kind of forgiveness that brings you face to face with your own internal resistance, your conditioning, and your unmet longings. And so for me, this has brought up a line for me that I have wrestled with most of my life. So I am someone who I found religion in the sense that I didn't grow up in a religious household. My grandparents absolutely attended church. That was not a problem. My parents did, absolutely. But then, of course, when they had us as kids, that wasn't really high on their radar. And so going to church or being brought up in a faith wasn't something that I grew up with. And at the same time, as a very, very young child, I knew that this was something that I wanted for myself. And so I went out and I found it. And I started getting, I think I've told this story before on the podcast, where I was going out and seeking it, and actually got myself on a bus and kept going to church week after week after week so that I could get bubble gum, but also so that I could get that need inside of me met. And that was incredibly important for me to be able to do this. And so as I say all of this, there has been this line that I have wrestled with most of my life, because as an individual, as a child, when I was seeking all of that, I later, as a parent, having a religious offering a religious education to my children was incredibly important. And so I took that upon myself to be a part of that. And I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I was the director of religious education for the Holy Family Parish that I used to attend for decades. And I loved that work, and I loved being there with my children and being part of their religious education. So that's a bit of context that I feel like you needed before I say this piece, because this line that I have been wrestling with most of my life is when Jesus is on the cross and says, like, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I used to hear that and feel confusion. I was like, what does that even mean? That they know not what they do. What does that even mean? And this week I heard it and I felt the truth. Forgiveness as frequency. Forgiveness as leadership. Forgiveness as a doorway to sovereignty. And so where I am with this at this moment is presence is everything in this work. When I am truly present with myself, with my clients, with my family, I can feel the vibration shift. The energy repatterns itself. It is so real and it's life changing. And what I want to say, but there are a couple of things I want to say about that. One is this idea, like when I'm now, before preparing for my client sessions, I make sure that I attune myself to a higher vibration so that depending on what they bring into the conversation, I'm at that higher vibration. I can invite them into that higher vibration. I can invite them into that experience of feeling that higher vibration. And that's all of this. Everything that I'm saying here is intuitive intelligence. The ability to trust yourself as the vessel and then get the hell out of the way and letting source move through you, or letting source move through me. And so in this space, here's what's fascinating to me, because I now see myself as God. I see each person as God too. And that has changed everything. Because, of course, when I look at myself, or if I look at them as like, you have the power of God within you, you are that powerful. This is them, like the situation or the context that they're in is their thoughts made manifest. This is their power, choice by choice, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. And that's where real leadership lives. And being able to see them and view them as God allows me to challenge them in a way that brings out the potential that I see in them. So let me give you an example. This week, a client teared up when all I asked them was this: how can I really serve you today? That one word, really, shifted everything, because they took the wheel not from ego, but from clarity. And leadership to me is about asking those kinds of questions, the questions that open doors rather than giving directives. But I'll be honest, this work cracked me open in ways that I didn't expect this last week. So during my sadhana, there was an archetype that appeared. And in the sense of like archetypes, this one was named the Priestess. She came in again. She's been popping up all week. And I had a one-on-one session with my mentor last Wednesday. And what surfaced there was this deep, long held fear and belief that I was a disappointment, that I wasn't meant to be here, that I was wrong, that I wasn't meant to be here at this time and in this place. And here's what's fascinating about it, because it showed up as pressure in my upper body. There were in my visual, like I could feel this happening for me. I could feel it. This is a felt sense. I felt hands around my throat, a voice silenced. And in that moment, I could feel the weight that I'd been carrying, the energy that I had not let go of. Even my body reflected it. And I've talked about this on the podcast in this last 8 weeks. The return of edema in my legs, the physical reminder to me of the emotional weight that I'm carrying. But here's the shift. Rather than collapsing into shame, which I could have done and would have done before, or trying to fix it, I didn't do any of those things. I asked myself, can I meet this with compassion? Can I start again with kindness and with curiosity? And that opened up another awareness, because I realized then that I had been holding something, the Shiva and the Shakti energies, out of balance in my work. And so here's what that means. The Shiva is the masculine. The Shakti is the energy, is the feminine energy. So the Shiva being like all about results, etc., and the Shakti being about creative flow, that was out of balance for me in my work. So the organization that I contract my services with, I have been treating that organization like Shiva. And I have been the Shakti, unknowingly placing myself beneath it, energetically unequal. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I bring as much to the table. The moment that I remembered that in my mind, because I was actually seeing the organization as a higher authority, if you will, than I was seeing for myself. And this is such a beautiful awareness, because the moment I saw it, that dynamic shifted. Here's what authentic leadership looks like. It's seeing your own worth. It's seeing that I was giving my authority away over them. I was giving my power away to them. But now it's seeing it. Okay, I am owning my own worth. I have incredible value, and let me not diminish it. The second piece is naming the pattern. So I could see a pattern of behavior that I had within myself where I was assigning, choosing, unconsciously, albeit, but choosing to assign them more energy than I was assigning myself. And the third thing is, once we see our worth and once we name the pattern, it's choosing differently. Not just once, but over and over and over and over and over and over and over as the layers peel away. And so here's what I'm asking you or inviting you to sit with this week. Where might your energy be leaking? In your work, in your leadership, in your relationships? Is your nervous system trying to get your attention? And if it is trying to get your attention, you probably already know that. And so it might be just interesting for you to sit with yourself and allow yourself to just tune into that. Like if you're feeling there's anxiety, if you're feeling doubt, if you're feeling fear, if you're fearing anger, whatever it is that you're feeling, but just tune into it and just ask it, what's the message you have for me? Like what are you worried about here? What is the concern that you have here? And then just check in with yourself. Does that feel true with me? Because the third question is like, what are the truths that are waiting to rise in your body, in your breath, in your voice? Because we can't fake this stuff anymore. We do not need more performative leadership. We need embodied leadership. We need leaders where presence is the offering and love is the strategy. And so I want to offer you a reflection exercise. I challenge you to ask yourself, how can I lead from presence and love today? What can I do to embody my worth in every interaction that I have? The priestess reminded me that my role is to be the bridge, not the expert, not the fixer, but the demonstration. And I am here to embody reclamation so that others feel safe to do the same, to create spaces where people can show up unarmored, unmasked, and still whole. Because this isn't about hierarchy, this is about healing. And there's no room for ego here. Only its slow, sacred death, hour by hour, breath by breath. Because fear, I've realized, is not the enemy at all. It is the teacher. It points us back to the truth that we are one, that leadership is love, not control, and that joy, not suffering, can be our portal to awakening. And I don't think we realize that. Like, just sit with that for a second. We can awaken through fear, or we can awaken through joy. It doesn't have to be just suffering. We do have a choice that we can make there. So I invite you to take this with you today. Be the bridge. Let your presence do the talking. The only moment you're ever really promised is the one that you're having right now in this moment. So let it do the talking. And when you forget who you are, remember, I am that I am. So with that, thank you so much for walking this journey with me. And until next time, stay unfiltered, stay uncharted, and keep walking yourself home. Take care and make it a great week. I hope that you're walking away feeling more aligned with your true self, more confident in the choices ahead, and ready to leave the safe path behind, knowing you've got everything you need within. Remember, the journey to you isn't about finding one perfect direction. It's about trusting yourself enough to explore all of it. If you're ready to dive deeper, join me for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss the next step on your path. I invite you to join my mailing list at www.cynthiajamesoncoach.ca, where we'll deepen our relationship and you can claim your copy of Your Inner Compass, a guide to charting your course to authenticity. Until next time, stay unfiltered, stay true, and most importantly, stay you.